We are live. I'm Christina. I do the Substack um, that is all about productivity in every way, shape, and form. And today, what I want to focus on is titled, and I've got some notes that I'm going to be looking at systems that serve humans and not the other way around. And so that is all about the core question of why do so many good systems quietly exhaust people that are inside them? So, today we're going to focus on systems because most people think their productivity problem is a personal problem when it's actually the architecture of the system. What I see repeatedly, whether I'm working with an individual or with a 150 person organization, is this specific thing. So, systems were designed for output, not for humans. So, when people start really struggling, and I mean struggling, we don't question the system necessarily. We go in and we question the person. So this matters really deeply to me because a lot of work that I've done, both in corporate environments and now in my own business, has been untangling where responsibility actually belongs in this. So this isn't about lowering standards at all. And I want to be very clear. This is not about lowering standards at work. It's about designing systems that don't quietly or even loudly burn people and it burn them out, quite frankly, in the name of efficiency. So most leaders, when they say they need a better system, they really mean they really mean this. I'm carrying more cognitive load than I really want to. I'm doing more of the work that I was ever meant to. And what this does is it breaks down. So that means that there's too many decision points. That means that there's too many tools overlapping in too many ways. And that also could mean too many invisible expectations. We talk a lot about expectations, visible and invisible, but invisible expectations can really be a part of a major breakdown, as well as there's no clear end of day definition. And what that means is people might say, I'm going to work on this project today or this week, instead of working into an end of day definition saying, what does the end of day look like? When am I done just for today? So that is not a motivation problem. That's a design flaw in the system that you have. It could be your own personal system. More often than not, we see it in work-based systems, whether it's a tool walking you through a process or a standard operating procedure that you have. We like to think that systems are neutral. They are not. Very plainly, each system rewards certain behaviors and assumes a certain type of brain type, background, approach. So if your system only works when people are over functioning at work, the system itself is not working. So what do you do? So what do you do? This matters. We're going to talk about that in just a minute, but we're going to get into why this matters first. When organizations start with tools, a CRM system, a new email management system, an SMS option. My background's in marketing. I spent 20 years in and around corporate world in marketing, communication, revenue, and operations. And I saw this at all levels. People focus so hard on the tool, making it easier for the guests. We should implement this tool. And so they focus on the tool instead of the people and the systems that got them there for needing the tool as a whole. So when organizations start with tools, they're already behind. Instead, we want to think in terms of people, systems, tools. People, you decide what decisions get made or how decisions get made. Where does energy drain for your staff and your people? And what feels heavy or really unclear? You start with that in the people bucket before you even start addressing system challenges. So once you kind of know what's heavy, unclear, how decisions are made, even the ones that are not necessarily documented, from there you focus on the systems, which are like processes, right? How does work actually move forward? What handoffs are breaking, maybe from team to team or employee to employee, or even from like project phase to another project phase? How are things getting lost? And what's duplicate or even assumed? You know what they say about assumed. So from there, we do tools. From there, only then does focusing on tools makes sense. So most burnout I see comes from reversing this order. They focus on the tool, then they move on to how to use the tool within the context of the systems that you have, and then they move on to people. And it should really be the other way around: people, systems/processes, and tools. There are 3 different things that I want you to think about when it comes to change and processes and getting your team to work better. Stop asking, why isn't something being done? Stop asking the question, why isn't this being done? And instead, we want to ask this: where is the system asking for more than what is reasonable? Where in the system asking for more? Let me rephrase that. Where is the system asking for more than what is reasonable? Number 2, you want to audit the friction, not performance. You want to focus on the friction. So if something feels hard, slow, or super annoying or boring, pay attention. That's data. We often optimize for performance. I'm guilty of this as anybody. What's working really well and why, and building on that. You can learn from that. You also can learn from areas where you're really challenged. And it might be the same places where you're doing really freaking well. But what also might happen is that where you're doing really freaking well is doing well because the processes are slow, and that you could be doing even better. So you want to focus on friction and not performance. And number 3, a reflection that I want you to focus on is designing for sustainability and not heroics. And that's just a fancy way to talk about or ask the question, or the reframe or focus, to have the focus of, and the question I have on here is, if your best people are the ones barely holding it together, the system is eating its talent. If your best people are the ones barely holding it together, the system is eating its talent. And we see this often when somebody is doing 3 jobs. Say somebody left, or there was a downsize, or they just took on more work when somebody went on leave for, say Bob went on medical leave, and Sharon took over the work and never gave it back because they didn't hire anybody in his place because he decided to leave. You've got people who are being eaten by a system, and you don't want to promote her, because then you're going to have to hire 2 or 3 people. They become so valuable in a role. Now you have them stuck, and they're going to get exhausted. They're also going to get really, really pissed that they're stuck. But you might be sitting there well, they're doing the best they can in the spot that they have, and I need them there. That's going to cause a lot of challenges. So I want you to reflect on those 3 things. Stop asking why isn't something being done, and focus instead on, where is the system asking for more than what is reasonable? Number 2 is to audit the friction, not the performance. So if something feels hard, or it's annoying, or it's boring, pay attention to that data. And number 3 is design for sustainability, not heroics. So if your best people are barely holding it together, the system is eating its talent. Overall, systems should not create capacity, and it also should not consume it. Sorry, systems should create capacity, not consume it. So I'd love to know, are there areas where you feel like you're being consumed? Where you feel like you're being consumed by your work, either you as a boss or you as a staffer? Use that as data to go and see what is working, what is not, where am I getting the most friction? So this is the work that I do with leaders and organizations every day, helping them build those systems so that people can actually live on the inside of them, right? But you have to have the people layer first, then the system/processes, and then the tools. Oftentimes it's turned on its head, and they focus on the tools and integrate it into the systems, and then people into all of those. And we have to turn that back around. So if this conversation resonates, you're not behind and you're not broken. You're probably just operating inside a system that needs to be completely redesigned. That might be in your own business. That might be in your work. And if you are in a position where you say, well, Christina, I don't have that kind of authority. Well, you do on your day-to-day work. So I would encourage you to do this for yourself as an audit and say, what is causing me the most friction? Because what you can do with that information, what feels hard? What is really challenging? What is slow? Those are the things that you can take those data points and think about what could be outsourced, eliminated, delegated, and part of that delegation could be AI. How could you automate or delegate some of those things that take a long time, make you really frustrated? That is where you start, not just with Claude or just with Chat GPT or just with Perplexity. You focus on where you're challenged. I'll give you an example. Something that I follow my notes here, so I want to be very clear about that. My ADHD and dyslexia needs the notes. So, where do I feel the most burnout is a question that I ask. And so, one of the things that I've noticed in my own business that I feel the most burnout in is documentation of my receipts. I know that that seems very simple, but it is something that I find profoundly boring. So, what I've done is a couple of things. One is I decided to move it into a system that works for my brain. It's a spreadsheet in Google. And I do a lot of that work manually because when I tried to optimize it and automate it, it was getting expensive to run those systems. And I was like, you know what? An hour a month, I could have this done. And so that's something that moving backwards from AI worked for me. Now, where I was having a lot of other friction for my day-to-day workload was editing video. That is the space where I was struggling. And so that prevented me from moving forward in my business. And so I was like, okay, that's a revenue generating activity, is editing and being able to post video. So what I did was I was like, what is slow about this process? It's not creating the content. It's not doing the video itself. It's not creating the scripts or the outline. It really, truly is going in and editing it. So I figured out one specific thing. And I said, what tools can help? What is the process I have now? Right? We got the people, we've got the process. This is the process. And once I get to a certain point is when it gets really challenging. And that's editing, cleaning up the audio, putting in captions. That is when I implemented AI through a tool I use called Descript. And so I take Descript and I'm able to upload the video. I can say, I want you to fix eye contact. I want you to write captions. I want you to write titles of subjects for each, chapter based on the transcript. And I can go from there and I'm off to the races. And I can then tell it, I want you to cut out social posts that are no longer than 45 seconds. And it does that editing for me. And it has sped up the amount of time that I'm able to turn stuff around in my business. So I took a friction point, the data, and I said, you know what? This is where AI can support me. So if you're interested in stuff like that, figuring out how to do an audit, reach out to me. I'm going to do another post that's all about how to do a self-audit first and then an audit for your organization. If you're interested in that, make sure to follow me right here on Substack because that'll be coming up next. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm happy to respond to them. If you have any specific things that are you are challenged by when it comes to your productivity, because that is my favorite topic to discuss. Because I really want people, especially business owners, to have the support that they need. Not just support, have the strategies in place that they need to be successful. I believe small, medium-sized businesses are the backbone of our economy and will keep us moving forward because the big behemoths take a long time to pivot and turn. And we don't. And there's power in that. And I want to support you in your power by being as productive as you possibly can. That is the live for today. If there are no questions, I will be on here later on this week. I will schedule it so people can subscribe to it. So that'll be coming. Otherwise, drop questions. You know where to find me. And I'll see you in the next live.